Um, so I this is going to be one of those moments that goes viral.
That was conservative columnist Bethany Mandel having a bit of a difficult time defining woke. Now, she was asked on Rising, hey, what do you think woke is? I mean, you keep saying woke. What exactly is woke? And of course, she didn't have an answer. And just as she foretold, the moment did go viral. And it's because of the host, in this case, Briahna Joy Gray, who actually, look, I've been critical of her in the past, some of the stuff that she said, but I think this was perfect. She did something that virtually no host on cable news ever does. When a conservative starts going off about, oh, woke this, woke that, everything's woke, it's wokety woke. They never ask, okay, what's woke? Like, please define woke for me. And then press them on it. And in her case, she couldn't. She just did not have the ability to do so. Now, of course, later on, she did come up with a hilariously wrong answer. But before I get to that, she started this argument by saying, you know, few Americans, they actually consider themselves very liberal, and fewer of them consider themselves to be woke. Now, if we're going to talk about labels, she may be correct. But remember, we're going to go beyond the labels, beyond the surface here. We're going to look at policies. Policies, for example, teaching things like, I don't know, racism. And for that, I go to some polling. Recent polling from USA Today Ipsos, for example. They found that 72% of Americans actually support teaching the ongoing effects of slavery and racism in the United States in our public schools. 72%. Overwhelming numbers of Democrats, independents, and close to half of Republicans, about 46%, were in support of that policy. Teaching, again, the ongoing effects of slavery and racism in the United States in our public schools. What does that sound like? It's almost as if there's like a term for that. Critical something. I don't know. Well, let's continue with the poll. Americans also overwhelmingly oppose, 76% to 21%, efforts by state governments to ban certain books from school classrooms and libraries. Books that happen to deal with subjects like racism or LGBTQ. The opposition to state bans crosses party lines, including 86% of Democrats, 78% of independents, and 66% of Republicans. I don't know, man. It feels to me like a lot of Americans are woke. Even if they might not call themselves woke, it's reflected in the things that they prefer. But wait. Here's where it gets interesting. Here's where the effects of conservative media come into play. You see, when asked about teaching critical race theory, which is not taught in K through 12 education, by the way, the results changed, unsurprisingly. Okay? Now, those surveyed actually opposed 53% to 41% the teaching of critical race theory, which, as we know, actually examines, get this, the ongoing effects of slavery and racism in the United States. Literally the same definition, but when you call it critical race theory, which again has been demonized by conservative media, suddenly like, oh my God, no, we're totally against that. But wait, the only thing that changed is the name. The policy or the material is exactly the same. And it goes back to, again, how effective right-wing media messaging really is. And of course, the failure of Democrats to fight that, to actually engage on this issue and to talk about this issue, to message this. It brings me back to, for example, in Kentucky. They asked people about, and this is way back, like 2014, 2015. Do you like Obamacare? People would ask, regular people in Kentucky, hey, do you like Obamacare? I hate it. God damn. I hate that Obamacare. But they loved the exchanges that were set up through Obamacare in the state of Kentucky. Like, oh yeah, no, I love my state exchange. Yeah, no, it's really helpful. Yeah. But I hate that Obamacare. That's socialism. But then, of course, you ask the same people, hey, should we have, single, universal health care? The majority of Americans, even Republicans, are like, yeah, of course we should have universal health care. But Medicare for all, well, yeah, actually kind of sounds good. But Obamacare is socialism. I mean, it all comes down to wordplay. Okay, it's all terms. And that's why, by the way, Mandel can get away with saying things like, oh, very few people identify as very liberal, because again, a lot of that, it's just words. It doesn't mean anything, and the words don't mean anything anymore. And a lot of times it's used as a pejorative, at least in right-wing circles. Oh, hell, on the left, you get called a liberal. You're like, what the hell, man? Why are you calling me a liberal? I'm a leftist. I'm a sock down, or I'm a socialist. So, I mean, again, even in the left, those labels get applied. But anyway, when it comes down to it, though, the majority of Americans support progressive policies, leftist policies. What do I mean by that? Social Security. Social Security is a leftist policy. That's it. Data for Progress found an overwhelming majority of likely voters, about 78%, are in favor of expanding Social Security, which would impose payroll taxes on Americans making more than $250,000 a year to shore up Social Security. That is a progressive idea. Taxing the rich and using it to fund Social Security. 85% of Democrats, 75% of independents, and 72% of Republicans support that idea. Voters across party lines, 74%, are also in favor of keeping Social Security a federal program. The government, instead of privatizing it. 80% of Democrats, 69% of independents, and 73% of Republicans hold that view. Keep it in the federal government. Do not privatize it. For God's sakes, we do not want Social Security, our retirement program that we pay into all our working lives, to be, in the hands of Wall Street. Nearly half of all voters want to increase funding for Medicaid. 89% believe that the funding for the program should either be increased or remain the same. And you can go on and on. Policy after policy that's progressive, raising the minimum wage, taxing rich people. All of these things are popular across the board. They're progressive ideas. Now, are Republican, and they're populist ideas. Now, are Republicans pushing those policies? No. Well, let me actually go back. There is one, at least that is, they're talking about, we're not going to do anything about, we're not going to let them to cut Social Security. We're not going to raise the retirement age. And that's Donald Trump. Donald Trump bringing out the fake populism and saying, yeah, we're not going to touch Social Security. We're not going to touch Medicare. And how dare you try to do that? Whereas, of course, Ron DeSantis, he rightly pointed out during one of his recent Iowa speeches, Iowa rallies, that Ron DeSantis had supported cutting Social Security. So hitting them with populism, Donald Trump's really good at doing that. Even though, of course, when he does get into office, what he does is cut taxes for the rich and deregulate industry. Deregulated the banks, deregulated the trains. You get it. Serving corporations. Because when corporations give Donald Trump money, what, you think he's not going to take the money and do what the corporations want him to do? Yeah, of course he does. Of course he does. What? I'm not a dummy. You give me money, of course I'm going to help you out. And it's going to help me out too. Yeah, of course. So now, that said, Republicans, most of the Republican Party are not pushing these policies. In fact, they're opposed to progressive policies, which is why they have to do these culture war narratives, these distractions, and basically call everything woke. And that's really their plan.
The wokers.
That's why they're all screaming and just applying the word woke to anything that they don't like. It's a catch-all. It's a catch-all. So, and again, there's a distraction here, a distraction tactic to basically get everyone to fight each other instead of seeing what we do have in common. And of course, there's a lot of differences between the right and the left, especially on social issues. But among voters, there are things that we do have in common. And one of those commonalities is the fact that we are both being robbed by the rich and powerful, by corporations and wealthy donors. So, getting back to Mandel, what's her definition of woke? Well, here it is.
Woke is something that's very hard to define, and we've spent an entire chapter defining it. It is sort of the understanding that we need to totally reimagine and redo society in order to create hierarchies of oppression. It's hard to explain in a 15-second soundbite.
Is it though? Is it really? Is it hard to define it in a 15 seconds? Well, I mean, we spent an entire chapter BSing about something that I can't really explain. And because I am bullshit. No, you know what the definition of woke is? It means to be aware of social injustice. That's it. And it started from Black vernacular. That's it. So basically, you were aware and awake, and you see injustice. That's it. Most Americans, by the way, 56% of those surveyed, getting back to that poll, gave that correct answer. They said, yeah, it means you're aware and awake and realize that there is social injustice in this country. That's really it. Now, that included not only 3/4 of Democrats, but also 1/3 of Republicans who gave that correct answer. That said, the majority of Republicans, 60%, said that being described as woke is actually insulting. Oh, woke. How dare you call me a woker?
The wokers.
It's amazing. How dare you be awake and aware? No, we want you back to sleep. We want you back to sleep. No, that's what it comes down to, though. They want you to close your eyes, to go back to sleep, and ignore how the wealthy and powerful are actually robbing you. That's what they're doing. Now, one more note of irony here. Look, a lot of the injustice that people who are woke, are aware of, faced by Black people in this country, was really designed as a way to prevent them from sharing in wealth and gaining political power in this country. Remember, slaves were brought over in this country as property. They were economic property of, wealthy plantation owners. They were essentially tools, in order to help them make more money, to generate them wealth. Free labor. That's essentially what it was. And so a lot of the systemic racism that came from this system of chattel slavery, and then afterwards, was aimed at keeping Black people from getting an education. Again, the reason that slave owners did not want Black people to get an education is because an education would make them rebel against their masters, So that was the most dangerous thing, educating them. They didn't want them to get an education. And then after they were freed, they did not want them buying or owning property. They didn't want them building businesses. In fact, we had Black Wall Street that was destroyed. And this is a very wealthy black area filled with businesses. They didn't want black people accruing wealth, and they did not want them gaining political power and being able to make decisions on a political level. That's really it. So the people with the money and the power, which happened to have been white people, of course, at the time, white landowners specifically, wanted to keep their power and prevent other people from getting it. That's basically it. That's what it comes down to. This fight over woke is really a fight over information. Information that the elite in this country, who have benefited from, again, centuries of oppression that they have levied towards marginalized communities, using them as free labor and then keeping them down economically, is a way for them to keep themselves at the top. They want to continue to be on the top by keeping other people down. Conservative leaders in this country, they want to define woke. They want to redefine woke because they're afraid of what happens when people realize that there are systemic and economic and as well as social tools of oppression that have been used and still have an effect on people and are still used. If people know about these tools and know about the way that people have been oppressed and the reasons why to keep them from getting power and money, it would completely obliterate them and all of their economic arguments, as well as their culture war racist narratives. And maybe, again, if people are aware of the real issues, they would become united against those who are trying to keep marginalized communities and everyone else, workers, down.